Recording is now in progress. And the meeting is being recorded. And I'm trying to put here to say okay. There it is. Now we got the okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Who's here for the first time? I know the two of you. You guys are here for the first time too? Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy what we're gonna do here tonight. You're gonna see me walking back and forth here. It's basically because I count steps on my watch. And I have the goal, I have to have, 15,000 steps, That's the reason, not because I'm pacing, no, just because I'm, just kidding. So the theme that I chose tonight, I was having a conversation earlier this year. I was on vacation, I was meeting with a really good friend, and he said, there is one thing, one sentence in the entire Bible that changed me. I thought, okay, I believe it's something about the Sermon of the Mount. He said, no. It's on the first epistle of John. Really? I'm not really good with the epistles. Which sentence that was? And he said, whoever claims to love God, yet hates other people, those people are, whoever does that is a liar. I said, really? Where does it say that? Oh, it's on the first epistle of John, chapter 4, item number 12, 20. And I said, oh, that's interesting, but there's more to it. The entire verse goes like this. Whoever claims to love God, yet hates a brother or sister, is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister, who they can't see, cannot love God, who they haven't seen. So you cannot love someone that you see. When you say that you can love God, well, what is God again? How can you love something that we may barely understand? But we are capable of hating someone that we see. So a lot of our discussion today is going to go about this verse here, because when my friend told me about that, I read and said, that's interesting. That's interesting because that connects so many different aspects that we can discuss, that we can talk about. So let's talk about those things there. So starting with epistles. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrongly. You people that have English as a native language, I cannot ever pronounce epistles the way you guys do. I always say the T. That's an accent that we have. We Brazilians, we always say the T. Other people, they say it very subtly, So epistles come from the Greek word for letter, pretty much that. We knew that, we always said, the letter from the apostles. So let's first understand what the epistles, why we're talking about epistles and how we're going to approach the epistles. For that, we're going to understand a little bit how we, as Spiritists, we approach the biblical texts. Okay? In summary, Bible is a collection of several texts that were compiled into books. Who did that? Who compiled that? We humans. Other times, well, we're Spiritists. We believe that we were born several times. We're reincarnated. That's why you say we are the ones who did that. I'm not saying that they did that. Maybe it were other people, but we could be involved with that. Some of the books that we have, they are letters that were written from a person to a group, from a person to another person. So the gospel in general starts with, the New Testament starts with 4 gospels. So books that are telling the story about Jesus, followed by the Acts of the Apostles. So a book telling what happened with the apostles after Jesus died and resurrected and everything. And then we have this part of the letters. And it closes with the book of the Apocalypse, okay? Or Revelation in English. So on the epistles, as in every single biblical text, does anyone here know where the original texts are? Nowhere. There's not a single original text in the Bible. Let's remember how things were back then. If I had a text and now I have a copy of that, could I just take a picture and send by WhatsApp to the other person? No. Could I? Okay, let's go back when I was younger. Could I take that text to a place and make a Xerox copy of it? No. If I like a book, could I go to the library and borrow that book? Maybe. Could I buy a copy of that book? It would be hard. If I didn't have the book, what would we have to do? Manually copy. That was a profession. Okay? To be someone that would read, write, and make copies, that was a profession back then. So, the material where those things were written, they were not meant to last forever. Some of the writings on the time of Jesus, they were written in materials that they just disintegrated already. But copies were made after that. And the thing that we have is copy of the copy of the copy of the copy. None of the text, the books in the Bible are signed. So whenever we say a letter, a epistle of John, okay, it's because at one point, when the church was starting and they were selecting which texts would be considered sacred or not, they looked on those texts and they assigned, say, okay, this text here was probably very likely, we believe with all of our heart, that were written by the apostle Matthew. This text here was written by the apostle John. This other text here, very likely this letter here was written by Paul. And why am I saying that? In Spiritism, Allan Kardec made us question. Allan Kardec never said, this is the truth, believe it, and that's it. He made us ask us why. So whenever we approach any text, either from the Bible, from anywhere else, we can always look at this text in an unpassionate way. We can look and say, okay, let me see what it says here. So when here the epistle says that is an epistle from John, it's because when they were the fathers of the church, they were studying the manuscripts. They said this letter here is really similar, was written on a very similar style as the Gospel of John. Again, none of the epistles or the Gospels are signed. No one signed saying, I am the one who wrote that. So most scholars, they assume that they were written all simultaneously, which means like one letter was sent here, one letter was sent there. There are two in the Gospel. And they were written at the same time that the Gospel attributed to John was written, okay, between these dates here. How do the scholars know that? Well, they try to go back and see not only what is in the text, but what is talked about the text. Are there other Gospels other than the four in the Bible? Yeah. But when the fathers of the church were creating the church, they decided to pick this four. And again, there are texts that they were interchangeable. They were originally on the Gospel of John, and they're up on the Gospel of Luke, and vice versa. So there are several things that were happening. And again, in Spiritism, we have no problem saying that that's not a lack of faith, that's not mistrusting God or Jesus or whatever. No, we study the evidences. And I'm going all scientifically because what I said before, that about love and hate, we're going to look into also from a science point of view, what that brings to us. So, most scholars, I believe that all the three letters of John, they were written by the same author, but they don't know who the author is. I'm not saying here church people. I'm saying people that are studying historical artifacts, okay? So, most often the letters were attributed to someone in the, I'm going to try to pronounce this, in the Johannine community. So, John, he was the apostle who lived the longest, right? He was the only apostle that died of natural causes. They tried to kill him several times, but he wouldn't die. According to one of the stories, he was actually once put on a huge how can I call that? Caldeirão in English? Well, he was put on a huge caldeirão with burning olive oil. Yeah, and when they turned him, he came out and they peace be with you. So they tried, but he wouldn't die. Anyway, he was the one who lived the longest. And he spoke a lot, so he had a community following him. Even when he was arrested, the soldiers would sit to listen to him talking. So he had a community that followed him that they're gonna call the John Nines. And as he would talk, people would write what he was saying. Okay, so they believe that it was mostly this guy here, called John the Presbyter, who is named by Papias the Hierapolis, a Greek guy. That was the one that actually wrote all those letters based on the sayings of John. So it's not that this guy John had the ideas. No, but he was the one actually writing down what John the Apostle was saying. All right, let's try now to consider how can we love something that we barely understand, we don't understand, that we don't see. So, do you believe in everything you see? Well, I see the chair. So the chair does exist, right? I see something. Doesn't mean that it's always true. Everybody wants to say no, otherwise, why would I ask this question, right? Some things are obviously true. Look, like our cars outside. Yeah, they are there, right? We can see them. Certain things, we may misunderstand what they are. That's what I'm trying to say, because I'm trying to bring here the critical spirit on things. I'm going to give an example. I'm a spiritist, no secret here, okay? I have a lot of friends in Brazil that some are spiritists, most are not, but everybody that knows that I am spiritist. So, quite often I receive on my WhatsApp, oh, I saw this one, it's so beautiful, It's a text called A Vida é uma Dança by the spirits of Andre Luiz. Okay, here in our Spiritist Center we study Andre Luiz a lot. By the way, my name is Andre Luiz. My mother named me after the spiritual author. And then whenever I received that, the first time I received that, I said, I don't recognize this as being something written by Andre Luiz. I don't recognize it at all. Let me Google it. Okay, I Google it. And there are so many videos, lots of things about this, almost a poem, but more of a text written named Life is a Dance. And it was attributed to Andre Luiz, and it was psicografado, channeled by Chico Xavier. I said, no, that will be in a book. We have several books. Actually, Andre Luiz only wrote for Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira, nobody else, would be in one of those books. And then I go on the pages where they have these things, and I read on the discussions, and a lot of people are like me, okay, can you tell me in which book that is? And sometimes the answer is like, yes, this was psychographed by Chico Xavier. Sources. Please tell me, where did you guys see that? Right? So I started digging more. As I mentioned, it's widely, shared by spiritists. And then I found out Chico Xavier never, ever wrote any of these messages and never attributed this to Andre Luiz. What happened is, the author is called Andre Luiz Zanoli. So, if I write something here, and I know on the Spiritist Center, there are those people that will not check sources, but I want this to go farther, all I have to do is, look, this message here, Divaldo said that, and spread out. That thing will go viral very quickly. However, Divaldo never said what I just created. That's what happened in cases like this. So is this Andre Luiz? No, it is not. It's a beautiful text But as we read the style of what was written, we know it's not André Luiz. As we research more, we find the actual author. Yes, André Luiz, but not this one here. And wasn't channeled by Chico Xavier ever. Was just the guy wrote the text and published on his community. People found it pretty, and somehow somebody decided to change that. We are.
And now with AI, it's going to make it even harder to double check those sources, you know,
Yep.
because you might actually see Vivaldo saying those words, and it's actually, he never said those words. And it's not even him actually.
We'll see how that's gonna play out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, because now you can write a book in the style of Joana de Angelis. Right? So we'll see how that's gonna play out. But that's a challenge of our times. The main reason why I'm bringing this here is we have to be critical thinkings. In Spiritism, we have the fé raciocinada, the rational faith. Faith in Spiritism is not just, oh, it is there, believe it. If you're not believing, it's because you don't have enough faith. Like, we don't play guilty, not in Spiritism. That's never a factor. We believe in God for two reasons. You see the work, there must be an author for it. Oh yeah, there's an author for the universe. Okay, we see the Mona Lisa. We don't see Leonardo da Vinci, but we know that Da Vinci existed. The Mona Lisa is there. So the road exists. Something came before it. And that's how we see it. What's the definition of God in Spiritism? Primary cause of everything. You know, supreme intelligence. Primary cause of everything. Okay, can we understand that? Can we love the primary cause of everything? In Spiritism, we don't go and say, give your life to God, or give your life to Jesus. We're going to go more into that. We don't take away our responsibility. They gave us life because they want us to go and do something about it. Okay? So, what would Kardec do if Kardec received a message like this? So that's what we have to do when we receive the message, especially if these are Spiritist messages. We go, we check the sources. Okay? I know this can also be biased. We are in a crossroads nowadays, especially in the countries that we are connected to, both United States and Brazil. Recently now, we know that in Europe that's happening as well, that the division is huge now. So some people, they're gonna get all their news from this source here. Other people will get all the news from this source here. If we wanna know the truth, we have to dig deeper. So always try to dig deeper. If you wanna know the source, if you wanna know the truth, you gotta check the sources of what you're receiving. Try to analyze the text in a way that passion will not play a role. If you receive something, so the text from John that we received, that we read, were they actually written by John? Does it make a difference? Because what makes a difference for us is the content, the contents. In Spiritism, the Gospel according to Spiritism, the book, where Allan Kardec is taking some parts of the Gospel and then analyzing those parts in the light of Spiritism and getting messages from the spirits about those texts. Do you know how many, for instance, miracles we have on that book? None. That book is focused on the moral teachings of Jesus, because that's what's going to guide our lives. It's not to make miracles, not walking on water, not turning water into wine. It's if we can actually understand when God then says, blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the meek, the calm. Blessed are those who suffer, because they will be consoled. This is much harder. Much harder. So, whenever we see a text, those texts, we have to look on the moral teachings that those texts they bring to us. Always try to keep an open mind, because several times we may be wrong. So, I don't probably tell my age, I'm 52, Spiritist since early age, because I come from a Spiritist family, went back and forth, and I read so many fake Spiritist books in my life that it makes me mad to remember that someone told me, you should read this book. I took the time to read and say, How can anyone believe that this book here was actually, first, if the book says, by the Spirit of, unfortunately, it's not always that was actually written by any spirit at all. There are people out there that they will try to sell and make money, and they know that a lot of people, if it says by the Spirit of, they're gonna buy it. Not our case here. We don't do that, right? No, we don't. We always check our sources. What we're trying to say, what we're trying to promote here is, if you're gonna learn more about something, always check the sources. It's not always what you see there. Oh, the book tells me, oh, here, this text here, it says it's from Divaldo Pereira Franco. Let's check if it actually is from him. Because if the content makes you, why would Divaldo say something like that? It's better for you to check, always. And sometimes we think tough and we may be wrong, so keep calm, check our sources. Okay? I want to make a t-shirt of this and walk with this during this election year. Okay, but this answer here is easy, right? What about things that we don't see? Do they actually exist? Imagine if we go back to the time of Jesus and try to explain to them what electricity is. Electricity, something as simple as that. Without electricity, we wouldn't be doing this, right? Do we see electricity? We don't, right? Okay, let me get my cell phone here. Okay? Can I make a call? Do you see my wires sending? We don't. Those things do exist. They do waves. Now we learn about that. So a lot of things that we don't see, they do exist. Here's what we see. We see a very specific spectrum, from red to violet. Let me ask you this. Are there other colors? There are, of course. But our eyes, the human eye, let's make it clear, the human eye can only process the light that comes in this wavelength. When we have to do like infrared stuff, we don't see the light. We see the red, not the infra. When we have to do ultraviolet, we see the violet, but not the ultraviolet. The color that comes up here, our eyes cannot process. But they do exist. So a lot of things that we can't see, they do exist. Spirits. According to our spiritual friends, they are everywhere, even here. That means that because we don't see, we're gonna say no, they don't exist. Not quite. So what about the life? You know how long it took us to understand that a lot of our illnesses were caused by bacteria, various things that we don't see? My wife and I, we were in South Padre Island, 2021, when the pandemic was going down, and then we rented kayaks, I think. Stand-up paddle. And the character that was rented for us this stuff, very, I don't know the word names, but negationist, denying that even the coronavirus even existed. And I made the mistake to comment and think, well, I had 2 cousins that died of that virus. Can you prove me? Show me the virus. I want to see the virus. That's when I realized, I'm wasting my time here. So we will never see the virus. Our eyes are not capable for that. Does that mean that it doesn't exist? No, a lot of things that we don't see exist. So let me ask you this. Even on the scriptures, if anyone here read Bibles or the books, can anyone say that anyone ever saw God? No, right? So when we pray to God, when we talk about God, can we visualize what we are doing? It's hard, right? When you say that we love God, what are we loving? How hard is it to understand the greatness? Let me make a small comparison here. We have our cell phones. Do you think that you know everything that you can do with your phone? I have an iPhone here. I probably use, what, 20% of its capacity. There are a lot of things that this phone can do that I never discovered. People my age use Excel software from Microsoft. I probably know 5% of Excel can do. Who am I to try to explain what the creator of the universe can do if we can barely understand what some men create? So anyone that puts a limit in God, they have to rethink. If anyone says, no, God doesn't want you to do this, God doesn't want you to do that, God doesn't want you to reincarnate. Really? What if God asks you to reincarnate after you die? You're going to say, no, God, I cannot. My religion won't allow me. I don't think so, right? So it's hard for anyone to go. If you want to actually go and love God with all your heart, ideally you've got to understand what you're loving. And in Spiritism, we bring that with an explanation that's the primary cause of everything. If we start by the Spirit's book, the first questions are all Kardec trying to understand, asking the Spirit that identifies himself with the Spirit of truth, what God is, right? One of the questions is God infinite? And the answer is no. Your vocabulary is too restricted to explain that, right? So, how do you think that God looks like, right? On the Sistine Chapel, that's what Michelangelo painted. And that's the vision that nowadays we have. A lot of us, when you see the clouds, in the afternoon, and then you see the sun rays coming out of the clouds, we can even hear some, oh, a lot of people see God there. That's, we may be planted that memory because the Ten Commandments movie has God like that. So a lot of us had that memory burned from the childhood memories, but we cannot ever say, because no one ever tried to describe, yeah, I saw God, and God looks like this. Because think about this, our size compared to the entire universe, we are so little. And right now, we're still thinking about a universe. There are people talking about multiverse, whatever. There's only one creator, according to what we learn in Spiritism. God will have created everything. So we are too little to try to understand someone that can create that much. So how can we love God? Let's say everybody came here, walked in, loving God, and then trying to prove you guys that you cannot love God. Because you don't understand God. How can you love something that you don't understand? Let me try to help with that. So how can we love something that we never saw, that we barely understand? Okay. When the people that studied, the scribas and all those Jewish people that the Pharisees, they were studying, they asked Jesus, okay, what is the master, they was calling Jesus master, what is the greatest commandment? We had 10 commandments, and then Jesus said, well, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Where is that? I checked the source. So the source is Matthew, the gospel attributed to Matthew on the chapter 22. Okay? So the verses 37, 38. This is the first and greatest commandment. Okay, then I was asked Jesus, how can I love God? And then Jesus showed us how to love God. Working. If we do the work, if we put in practice the words that we learned, if we have the chance to forgive, if we have the chance to do something good to someone, if we have someone that has something against us, if we have every single example that Jesus gave us and we can put that in practice, we are doing the work that Jesus, that came from God, just like all of us, Jesus, our planetary governor, wants us to do the work. We've got to be the tools of that work. So how do I love God? I'm not saying don't go to a temple, don't waste your time worshiping. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying, if that's all what you do, then you're not doing the work that is required. If you want to go and pray in public, if you want to go and pray in silence, we all have the freedom to do the way we want. What we cannot run away from is to put in practice the things that we learn. Because those moral teachings, those are the guides for our lives. So to love God, to actually love God, is to put in practice the things that we learn. Is to do the work of God. Right after Jesus replied that, Jesus came with the second commandment. Oh, this is much harder. Now that I understand how to love God, which is just to work, Jesus come and tell me to love my neighbor? Here in the United States, people like to mow their lawns Saturday morning, because before it gets too hot, right? So Saturday that you have the time to sleep a little bit longer. Some will wake up really early, and usually right under your window, they're gonna go and mow their lawn. Né? So, okay, how can I do that? According to Jesus, all the other laws, all the prophets, all the law and the prophets, they hang on these two commandments: to love God and to love our neighbor. Even if my neighbor lives a few houses away, a few cities away, a few continents away. But how can I love everybody like that, right? Oh, again, work is put into practice. If we have the opportunity to do something good, we cannot ever pass this opportunity. If someone needs for you to lend a ear, to lend a shoulder, for them to cry, we may right there just be the instrument that God is using. So, on the Spiritism, we have a lot of books from a spiritual author called Andre Luiz. His books are very interesting because basically what happens is he lived here with us, he discarnated, and when he was on the other side, he was an intern in a lot of tasks. He was taking notes and turning them into books. Those are the books that we read. So we see a lot of what happens when we put ourselves in the position of being the one that can help. If we pray, we are not praying to something invisible, untouchable, nothing. In these books, we have real examples that when we put ourselves in the position of praying, we are drinking from the font. We are connecting with the spirits that are doing the work of God on that side, and we can be the instrument to do here. How many times on those books we have this problematic people here, and the person that comes to help is not even spiritist. It's just a good person doing good things, which is connected to this higher spirituality, and they use that person to do the work of Jesus, to go and do something about that part. And this does something. Sometimes it's to avoid a suicide, to stop someone from going absolutely, completely insane. So how do we love our neighbors like one another? By doing the work when the work comes. So still on Matthew 5. So can we hate someone we see in that case? That's hard, right? Believe it or not, a lot of people know me for a while. I have a lot of people in my life that don't like me. Don't like me at all. Even though I'm this nice, And yeah, there are a lot of people that, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like them either. Can we explain that feeling that we have that we don't like that person? Yeah, that person may do something, may say certain things, may act in certain ways that we don't approve, right? The same way as we do things, say things, and that people don't approve either. Of course, it's like that, right? But then come Jesus, that, is our moral compass, and tell me to love. No, you heard what I said, whether neighbor, hate, or enemy. They come and tell me to love my enemies. And pray for those who persecute you. Has anyone here ever been sued? How are you going to love the person that's suing you? Now, this part, when I read this, I wanted to call Jesus and, here, Jesus, come on. That guy's suing me. He's, doing bad things to my life. He's going to come and say, if I remember correctly, I got crucified by some people, and I still forgave them. Oh, come on, Jesus, you cannot compare me to you. He said, no, I gave the example. What I'm doing here is not pure words. I gave the example. Say, okay, come on, I'll try to love the person that's suing me, right? But I cannot have that. All right, so just by reading this on the Gospel of Matthew, we get confused. We cannot have, okay, what's the definition of love? We can see some of them, but a good one is deep affection. If you have a deep affection for someone that's doing bad things to you, how? And you do that. Oh, let's read Kardec. Kardec came up with a very good thing about that. Okay, Gospel according to the Spiritism. This great book, the Gospel according to that stream, if you extreme to Spiritism, has it on the chapter 12, an entire chapter with a lot of examples about how you're going to love your enemies. At the end of this chapter, there are several messages from the spirits talking about duelo. Back then, that was still a thing. Nowadays, we don't do that anymore, né? Yeah, right. It's just not the way we used to do back then. Now we do with keyboards, with phones, with everything. If we have a chance to hold our pride, we never miss the chance. So, on this chapter 12, on the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is the part when they're good for evil. That's the name of the first part. So, according to Kardec, Jesus never meant by this word love that one must have toward one's enemy the tenderness that one feels for a sibling or a friend. Oh, thank God. Thank God. So that doesn't mean that the way that I love my wife is the way that I'm going to love whoever, is pissing me off for whatever reason. Okay, that's a good start. Okay, Kardec helped me to process what I should do then. Okay? All right, so one cannot possibly have the same pleasure in being with an enemy as with a friend. If you're going to go out, okay, let's do an event together. Where are you going to call? You're going to call a friend, or are you going to call someone that you know that you don't like and you know the person doesn't like you? We always call the friends. There's no reason why, if you're sane, you're going to call, okay, I've got some free time, let me call the person that doesn't like me. Let me spend some time with that person so we can. That's not natural, right? So, here's the definition. To love one's enemies, so to love our enemies, is therefore not to have affection for them, which is not in nature, but is rather neither have hatred nor grudge, ressentimento, nor desire for revenge against them. That we can do. That we have control ourselves. That we can learn to control. This word here, grudge, when we get the Latin equivalent to that is resentment. Resentment. Sentiment, feeling, is when you feel again. So when someone does something bad for you, and you remember that, you remember again, that hurts again. It is as if someone punched you for the first time. Whenever you remember, you receive the same punch again. Over and over. That's resentment. You keep ruminating it. You keep feeling that again. Is that doing any good for you? No. The person who did the bad thing to you may not even remember that you exist. May not even remember. Have you guys heard the saying that quem bate apanha, quem apanha lembra? No. Quem bate esquece, quem apanha lembra? Whoever hits forgets. Whoever is hit remembers. That's very true. Anyone that was bullied in their lives, they remember their bullies. Anyone that was a bully, they never remember who they bullied. Right? That's how life is. So every time we remember those guys, it hurts again. So for our own sake, if we have a medical condition, if we have a headache, if we have back pain, I'm 50, what do we do about it? We treat it, right? We get treatment. We get medication, we get a treatment, we try to solve that. That's the same thing we have to do also with the way we feel. We got to treat it. How are you going to treat it? We're going to find the strength remembering those words, because if they're here, it's because they're possible. Have you guys ever heard of Nelson Mandela? He was in jail for a few decades. When he got out and became the president of South Africa, he didn't go after his white enemies that put him in jail. No. He tried to integrate the society. It's one of the most difficult things ever to do in our last century. So that's why he will be forever remembered, because even though he went through everything that he went through, he showed that he didn't have hatred or grudge. If he did this, he wasn't created any better than any of us. But he was one of those who was sent to us here to give the example, to show that it is possible. We may take a few lives to get there. Every life is a step up, but right now, that's where we are. So if we can do the thing that we control, which is to not have desire for revenge, okay, that's a good step. What else, Kardec? Tell me a little bit more. This is harder. That's maybe the hardest. Is to bring no obstacle to reconciliation. What if the person who made us, I like this word in English, who wronged us, what if they want to reconcile with us? What should we do? According to the gospel, according to Spiritism, if the person wants to reconcile, we have to consider that. Yeah, but I know that the person is lying. I know that the person just wants something. Well, they're not sincere on their reconciliation. You don't have to accept. When we say love our enemies, we're not saying, okay, hit me again. Okay, because we're doing in English, the words sometimes fail me, but the vocabulary is not exactly what I wanted to say. But if someone is wrong, doing things wrong to us, we will not just come and say, no, keep doing that. Of course not. That's not what we want to do. But let's say the person that we have to improve ourselves as well. But if we see that the person has a sincere desire to overcome the differences, we cannot place an obstacle there. You know what happens with spirits after we die? What happened with our feelings? What happened with our... Well, first, what happens to our possessions? They all stay here. We know that after we die, everything stays here. So I have my guitars, my albums, will all stay here. Our cell phones, we stay here. We cannot send WhatsApp from a solar, They all stay here. What do we take with us? We take everything that we feel, everything that we learn, everything that we know. If we didn't like something, we still won't like when you're there. If we liked, we're still gonna like. If we love someone, we're gonna still love the person on the other side. But if we hate someone, we're gonna still hate on the other side, right? And if we hated someone that already passed, we are already connected to the person. So as soon as we die, the person that we hated is gonna be right there waiting for us to continue this eternal fight. So if we have the chance, while we're still on this precious reincarnation, to make amendments, if it's anything that we did, we should try to remedy that. If we are 100% sure that we were not in the wrong, that the person that did something to us was in the wrong, if you see that that person has the sincere desire for reconciliation, we shouldn't put an obstacle. Otherwise, eventually, we're going to have to go through all that all over again. Anyone that's been through a divorce will rarely come and say nice things. No, my divorce was so calm. We went out in good terms. Well, if everything was that good, why did you actually split? What I'm trying to say is, a divorce is an example of there can be a lot of grudges, a lot of resentment, a lot of things to be solved later. You must always try to be on the right side. If you did something wrong, look inside yourself, think, okay, how can I right my wrong? Is there anything that I can do? No one else will be able to tell you what to do. You have to look at yourself. The same way, if you feel that someone did something wrong to you, you need to understand that that person may have a completely different timing for that person to understand, accept, and come to you. That means the love that Kardec wants here. You're not holding the grudge anymore. The person will pay for it by having the guilt, by carrying that load that they have. If you're open for reconciliation, we gotta do that. And finally, is to render them good for evil. If they provoke you, don't buy on it. You know, several times this is happening because we are bringing to the same level of vibration. Not everybody wants us to grow, to evolve. You know, why? Because we have enemies. If we reincarnated hundreds of times here on Earth, we messed up hundreds of times. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So not everybody likes us here yet, right? So it's surrendering good for evil, and without intention to humiliate them. Oh, that's even harder. If we have the chance, we know the person that did something wrong to us, and then, okay, I'm gonna be the bigger person, and let's make sure that you understand that I am the big person. Okay, we understand everything's wrong here. we are still holding grudge. We are still with resentment. The only person that will have a problem will be us, ourselves. That will hinder our development. Okay? So, in summary, the thing about loving God is putting into action the teachings that came through Jesus. Jesus was the most evolved spirit that ever walked this earth, brought us through 3 years of his life, lots of examples, not only the words, but again, the example. He's one that forgave the ones that decided to kill him. So, if he did that, not only he said that that can be done, that means that it's on our way to perfection to learn how to do that too. So, to hate the things that we see is stopping us from advancing. To love our enemies doesn't mean we have to have affection by them. we can do much more than that. And there's nothing wrong with worshiping, with loving God. Let's just try to remember that. Just doing that and not putting that into action, we're halfway there. We have a lot of work to do. Okay? So, don't be a liar. That's how everything started. Whoever claims to love God and hates a brother and sister, according to the guy that said it was John, is a liar. For whoever cannot love their brother and sister they see, cannot love God that they don't see. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to stop recording now.